I'll be honest, this video has been completely inspired by Tomo. I saw he recently did his My F1 2023 driver predictions, and I thought, well, I know another person who also puts out bad and bold predictions, and that's me. And while they were incredibly premature, I really enjoyed putting together my F1 2022 predictions. So I thought, well, might as well give this one a go. So I spent a bit of time looking and researching and putting together my list of who I think could be in the driver lineups in 2023. And I've got to say, there's quite a few that I'm unsure about, so I'd love to hear your suggestions in the comments below. So, whipping out the notebook again, we're going to start with Mercedes. Now, I believe that Russell will stay at Mercedes, like that's a given. However, Hamilton, I think the retirement's been coming now. It's obviously been on his mind for the past couple of years. I have said that Hamilton will retire, which means Mercedes have got a problem because who do they fill that seat with for 2023? But more on that one later. As for Red Bull, I've put Verstappen and Perez to be the lineup in 2023. I think it's going to be static. The thing with Red Bull is that they know they have a champion and someone who can consistently push other drivers in Max Verstappen and can fight for the title wins and potentially even the constructors and help them out with that. So I just think that why would they upset the apple cart? Why would they change Perez? He had, I'd say, like an average season last year. I think there were some really good performances, but equally he never really reached the heights of Verstappen. So it was a difficult one because I know a lot of people have said that they think maybe Gasly will go back to that Red Bull seat. I think that is now just a bridge that isn't going to be crossed again for Red Bull or Gasly. So Verstappen and Perez for me will stay static in 2023. Ferrari is very similar for me. I can't see them changing their lineup of Leclerc and Sainz. Leclerc is the wonder boy at Ferrari, and Sainz has proved what a great job he can do in that car. Keep it the same. Now, McLaren was one that I really struggled with. Honestly, it took me probably like 2 hours just to write names down on the piece of paper because Ricciardo, whilst he had the win in Monza last year, it wasn't a great year, was it, overall? Whilst Lando Norris just absolutely dominated last year. It was an amazing year for Norris. So I was thinking to myself, I was like, well, would they keep Ricciardo, or would potentially Lando Norris look elsewhere for a seat, potentially filling in that Mercedes seat? But ultimately, I think that McLaren quite like working with Ricciardo. I know they've both signed long-term deals. I can only see McLaren going up, and I don't think that Norris or Ricciardo would want to leave the team, nor do I think that either of them will be pushed out the team. Let me know what you think, again, in the comments below for that one. Now, Alpine, I think we're going to have a completely new driver lineup in 2023. So Ocon won't be in that team, and I think Alonso will retire. I don't really want to see him retire, and I think he's still got a lot of potential, but I do think that after this season, it will be his last. And I think he's come out quite well from it. Like, you know, coming back to F1, he had a superb season when I think a lot of people doubted him. So maybe he would stay in 2023, but for this purpose, I've said that he's going to retire. So we'll have a new driver lineup at Alpine. Again, I'll discuss that in a second. Aston Martin, Stroll is going to be there. He's going to be in that team. As long as his father owns the team, he's going to be in that team until he's like 50 odd years old and wants to retire. So that was an easy one. But Vettel again. Initially, I said that Vettel would retire. And I don't mean retire like Kimi Räikkönen retire where they go off to the Maldives. But I thought potentially that Vettel may opt for an advisory role within either the FIA or Formula One. We've seen a lot of great work that he's done over the past couple of years. But it then comes to the problem of who would replace him. And I can't see a lot of choice for Aston Martin, and I don't think they would necessarily want a rookie in that car, especially when they're such a new team. So for 2023, I think Vettel will stay, so the team will remain static. But that is one, again, it's a bit dodgy about, I'm not sure. But I think ultimately they'd want the experience of Vettel in that car. He had some good performances last year while the car was not up to scratch, so Stroll and Vettel stay for 2023. Over at AlphaTauri, I don't think we'll see Gasly or Tsunoda at the team in 2023. Again, I'll talk about that in a second, but I don't think either of them will be in that Red Bull sister seat. Up next is Williams, and we've seen the return of Alex Albon this year. He is partnering Nicholas Latifi. This is where I think things could change, because I don't think Latifi will even have a seat in Formula One. Williams was purchased by DeLorean Capital, I think that's the name.
I'm stupid.
And they've already stated that they have no interest in pay drivers and that they don't need pay drivers anymore. They have enough investment in the team. And whilst Latifi has definitely improved over the 2 years that he's been in Formula One, it's never really been to the extent that George Russell has shown. So I can't see why they would keep Latifi in the team when they don't need his money and they could potentially find a better driver than him. Albon, I think, will actually impress this year, so hence why I've put him as a 2023 driver for Williams. Now, going into 2022, Alfa Romeo has completely changed their driver lineup. They've got Valtteri Bottas, who departed from Mercedes, and they have a new driver in Guan Yu Zhou. A lot of people have already written off Zhou before he's even had one F1 race, and I think we should probably let him show his abilities before we completely wipe the slate clean. However, I understand where people are coming from, because Oscar Piastri has not got a seat this year in F1. He's a reserve driver and he won the F2 championship while Zhou finished in third. So I can understand why people think on merit, obviously Piastri should have got that Alfa Romeo seat and that they're not expecting maybe big things from Zhou. However, I have still said that I think that him and Valtteri will be partners in 2023. And this isn't just for Zhou's racing ability. He brings with him a lot of sponsors and a lot of interest in a growing F1 fan base in China. And I can't see why Alfa Romeo F1 would want to get rid of him so quickly. I don't think it'd be a great look on them either. So I think partly for financial reasons, Zhou will stay at Alfa Romeo, and I can't see them getting rid of Bottas. I really like Bottas. I think he's a great driver. He didn't have the best year at Mercedes, but he's by far not as bad as some people make him out to be. So Bottas and Zhou stay for 2023. Bringing up the rear, we have Haas. This was a lineup that initially I said that Schumacher wouldn't be involved in. I thought maybe he actually would get the Alfa Romeo seat. Changed my mind completely on that one. I think it will be the same as 2022. I think we'll have Schumacher and Mazepin. Mazepin because of his father's influence at Haas, and Schumacher, I think, is going to be one of those drivers that takes a little bit of time to develop in F1. Now, time isn't something that exactly goes hand in hand with F1. We've seen it with Red Bull drivers in the past. They've literally been given a matter of months, and if they are not good enough, they've been chopped. But I think Schumacher will remain at Haas, and obviously he's part of the Ferrari Driver Academy, and Haas have major links with Ferrari, so I think there's a vested interest there. I think for 2023, we'll see Schumacher and Mazepin remain as the Haas drivers. So if you round up all the teams and what I've said, it means we've got a spare seat at Mercedes, 2 spare seats at Alpine, 2 spare seats at AlphaTauri, and a spare seat at Williams. As for remaining F1 drivers, we have Gasly, Tsunoda, Ocon and Latifi. I think Latifi won't be in F1, and unfortunately, if Tsunoda's season goes the same way that 2021 did, I don't think we'll see Tsunoda in F1. So that means we have to find a seat for Gasly and a seat for Ocon. But then there's also the fact that you have new drivers coming through to F1. Some of the drivers that I've picked out are Piastri, Dennis Hauger, Liam Lawson, Sargent, Doohan, Pourchaire, Schwartzman, Vips, and also Nick de Vries. So there's a lot of drivers there that could make F1, but there's not enough seats to fill them. So this is where it gets quite tricky, because I was trying to find places for all these drivers, but like I said, there's not enough seats. So I had to consider who maybe isn't ready for Formula One yet, who through various circumstances wouldn't be offered a seat in Formula One. And the first decision I made was that I think Théo Pourchaire won't enter Formula One until 2024. He potentially could have a reserve driver role in 2023, depending on how he does this season. But I think ultimately I can't see Pierre joining until a year after. The other one that I had to sort of potentially say won't have a chance to get into F1 is Jack Doohan. Now, Jack Doohan I was really impressed with last season. However, he left the Red Bull Academy at the end of the year, which is an odd decision to make. I don't know on which side the decision was made, but he hasn't been picked up by another academy, and it is really difficult trying to get into Formula 1 when you haven't got the backing of an existing team. He does have obviously the connections with his dad, but in this list I just couldn't include him for that reason. So the drivers that I have put down are Alpine. I think it's going to be Oscar Piastri and Pierre Gasly. So we're going to see Pierre Gasly in the French team. I think it'll be brilliant for the brand, and I think he could do a really good job at Alpine. And Oscar Piastri is already the reserve driver for Alpine, and he's been in the Renault Academy, now the Alpine Academy, for a couple of years. So I think Piastri will get that seat. I'll talk a little bit more in detail in a second. At AlphaTauri, I think it'll be Hauger and Lawson. And then at Williams, I think that Logan Sargent will join Alex Albon. The tricky one was Mercedes, and in a poll I asked you all who you thought potentially could replace Lewis Hamilton if he did leave in 2023. So if we look at the results of this poll, 25% of people said they thought Lando Norris would take the seat. That was one of my potential guesses. However, as I've explained, I think the McLaren contract and his interest in McLaren will prevail, and I can't really see Mercedes either wanting to take a driver for that second seat that hasn't been in their junior programme, or at least have ties with Mercedes. Esteban Ocon was 17%, Sebastian Vettel was 23%, Pierre Gasly was 25%, and then 10% of you thought someone else. Some of the other drivers that were suggested were Nick de Vries, Stoffel van Dorn. Who else do we have? Oh, Oscar Piastri, Alex Albon. That was not one that I expected to be there. Hulkenberg, Alonso, Danny Rick. Okay, so quite interesting picks there. Now, I, like I say, initially thought maybe Lando Norris, but then didn't really work out. So I was thinking, okay, well, who have Mercedes got ties with? Who could potentially work within that team quite well? And for me, the options were either Esteban Ocon or Nick de Vries. Now, Nick de Vries has been with the Mercedes team for many years, and also in Formula E, he was with them as well. The issue that you've got with Nick de Vries is that he's been out of that kind of Formula 1, Formula 2 system for quite a while now. And whilst he is still having tests in the Mercedes F1 cars, he did the test back in Abu Dhabi last year and did quite well. I'm not quite sure whether it's now a bit too little too late, which is so harsh to say because he's still so young. But unfortunately, that is sort of how Formula 1 works a lot of the time. So then we're left with Esteban Ocon, and whilst I think this maybe wouldn't be a lot of people's first choice, he has a great relationship with Toto Wolff. He has been part of the Mercedes team for a good number of years. He has been in the Mercedes car before. He was the reserve driver a couple of years ago in F1. So I think maybe even if it was just for one season, just whilst he did find a more permanent replacement for Lewis Hamilton, I personally could see Esteban Ocon getting that Mercedes seat. So as I've said with my predictions, I think that in 2023, we'll see quite a few new faces in the sport. One of those being Oscar Piastri at Alpine. Now, Piastri is being hailed as a potential world champion, and fair enough, I think that he definitely could be. He won the F3 championship, he won the F2 championship. He's had great success across his junior career. He's also been a member of the Renault, now Alpine Sports Academy since January 2020. He's Alpine's reserve driver for F1 in 2022, and he also has former Red Bull driver Mark Webber as his mentor. So definitely there's a lot of connections there in F1 already. Dennis Hauger is again another sort of wonder kid that's come through the ranks, and he's also a big favourite at Red Bull. It was actually in September 2017, I believe it was after his season in British F4, he actually signed to the Red Bull Junior team. Hauger is also an F3 F3 winner, and he has been intensely mentored by Dr. Helmut Marko, who I think will want to complete that road to F1. This year he'll be racing in F2 for Prema, so I think we could potentially see a new champion there as well. This one does rely on a good F2 season, mind you, so we'll have to wait and see what happens, but I think if he does have a successful F2 season, he will get the AlphaTauri seat. Joining Hauger at AlphaTauri, I think, will be Liam Lawson, who I know is a fan favourite. Lawson has had quite a varied career in motor racing, but generally always done quite well. Like Hauger, Lawson is also part of the Red Bull Junior team, having joined in 2019. He also would have won last year's DTM Championship had it not been for the silly antics in the last race. And again, he's another driver that has been heavily mentored by Dr. Helmut Marko, and Dr. Marko has said already in an interview that Lawson has the capacity for F1. Some of you who did watch the F2 season last year may be wondering why he would then join F1, because he didn't have the best season in terms of championship standings. However, he did have quite a lot of bad luck if you look at the individual races. Again, I think Lawson is another driver that could do really well at AlphaTauri and potentially later go on to fill the Red Bull seat. And then, like I say, I put Logan Sargent as Williams' second driver. I think that this would make sense for Williams. I think it'd be great also for F1 to have an American driver in their books. So Sargent came third in the F3 Championship back in 2020. However, he wasn't able to progress to F2 for financial reasons in 2021. So he stayed in F3, and he wasn't with one of the better teams either in F3 that year, but he managed to finish 7th, which was a really good result considering the car that he was in. But there was some good news for Sargent, as in October 2021, Williams announced him as part of their junior team. And with Williams' backing, he will be in F2 this year. He's joining Carlin, and again should produce some good results, as Carlin is a very well respected team within F2. So if he does well, I could see him getting that F1 seat in 2023. So to complete my driver lineup for F1 in 2023, I've predicted Mercedes, George Russell and Esteban Ocon, Red Bull, Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez, Ferrari, Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz, McLaren, Daniel Ricciardo and Lando Norris, Alpine, Oscar Piastri and Pierre Gasly, AlphaTauri, Liam Lawson and Dennis Hauger, Aston Martin, Lance Stroll and Sebastian Vettel, Williams, Alex Albon and Logan Sargent, Alfa Romeo, Valtteri Bottas and Guan Yu Zhou, and at Haas, Mick Schumacher and Nikita Mazepin. So let me know your thoughts on my predictions. You can tell me they're awful. I won't mind, I promise. And I'd also like to hear your predictions for 2023. If you enjoyed this video as well, I'd love it if you could give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more content in the future. Until next time.